This Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by AM Woodland Outdoor Design, luxury outdoor living. amwoodland.com.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So earlier this week, from the weekend's talkies, we played Dr. Alan Francis, the distinguished professor of psychiatry, former head of the psychiatric department at Duke University.
Who made just a startling admission, and he should be checked out himself.
He compared Trump unfavorably to some of the 20th century's worst mass murderers.
Well, I think that medicalizing politics has three very dire consequences. The first is that it stigmatizes the mentally ill. I've known thousands of patients. Almost all of them have been well-behaved, well-mannered, good people. Trump is none of these. Lumping the mentally ill with Trump is a terrible insult to the mentally ill, and they have enough problems and stigma as it is. The second issue is that calling Trump crazy hides the fact that we're crazy for having elected him, and even crazier for allowing his crazy policies to persist.
I'm not out of order. You're out of order. This whole damn country's out of order. This whole damn country's crazy. We all should be institutionalized.
Because we put him in office.
Okay.
I mean, you think he's a little politically biased, or maybe he's just full-blown nuts?
That's a professor of psychiatry, Duke University, the chair of the department, formerly.
The chair.
Okay. Unfavorably compared to Mao, Hitler, and Stalin. Well, not to be outdone, Joy Reid over at MSNBC, who worries about Latinos being stolen. I'm not kidding. This is Joy Reid. This is the host at MSNBC before we even get to the other psychiatry professor.
This is an extreme administration that is dangerous. If you are a Latino right now, you probably need to carry your birth certificate around. I've known people that are carrying them because they're so scared that they're going to be scooped up and stolen.
Invasion of the body snatchers. Latino style. Latinos.
So Trump is stealing Latinos, and he's going to be responsible for more murders than Mao, Stalin, and Hitler. So there's two. Now combine sort of this two elements. It's not Alan Francis again. It is Joy Reid interviewing Harvard psychiatric professor Lance Dodes on the topic no longer of, well, in part Trump's mental wellness, but as did his esteemed colleague, Dr. Francis from Duke, Dr. Dodes also got into politics a little bit more policy-wise. That's what he wanted to focus on rather than mental state of being.
But when you hear this string of things that Donald Trump does, where he definitively says a thing, gets rebuked for the thing and says, I never said that. Or I was just joking. When there's like video that shows he wasn't joking, no one was laughing, he was talking to the press who he doesn't joke with, and he goes back and forward on these issues. And when he takes in someone else comparing him to God and takes that in and says, yes, that is me, what do you take from that kind of behavior?
Well, Donald Trump does have a fundamental psychological problem. He needs to be loved all the time. He needs to have power over everyone all the time. Once you get that idea down, the rest of his behavior and his speech makes sense. He also doesn't.
Go on.
I was just going to say, he also doesn't have any respect for the truth or for honesty. They don't mean anything to him because he can't care about them. His focus, again, is always on himself, and to care about being honest to people rather than lie to them means you'd have to care about your effect on them. Are you going to harm them? Are you going to mislead them? But since he has no conscience for that kind of thing, he never expresses regret. He does terrible things to people. The children who are being detained in cages are a good example. He has no regrets about these things. The children, of course, really amount to a crime against humanity. If you think about it psychologically, this is what some of us, one term in my field is called soul murder. That's what he's doing to these children, and his ability to do that fits perfectly with this kind of very deep sickness where other people don't matter, and he can hurt them to whatever extent he wants.
Donald Trump's soul murderer. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. 64636DA, turnkey.pro text line. Are you enjoying these psychoanalysis analytic sessions from afar from the safely ensconced studios of cable news networks as much as I am? Dr. Francis, Dr. Dodas, Dr. Francis. I'm looking forward to hearing from Dr. John Cocktoson. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about the underlying policy. I mean, I guess then by that standard, then President Obama was a soul murderer too, and President George W. soul murderer. This family
How much time
separation
can you
policy.
get for being convicted of being a soul murderer?
I guess all the ICE and we already know all the ICE and CBP officers. They're Nazi stormtroopers, ripping people from their homes and herding them into concentration camps at the border. How you liking the left's rhetoric on the topic? By the way, related story. Coalition of about 20 Democrat-led states suing the Trump administration over its plan to end family separation and detain migrant families for the duration of their adjudication of their court cases. So you have three options. You can have the Flores settlement agreement with the family separation, with the family release, essentially release into this country. We know a small fraction show up for their hearings to have their cases lawfully adjudicated. You can do it that way, just continue to pile up the illegal immigrant population in this country, which is what the left wants to do. You can separate families the way that families are separated when an American citizen commits a criminal act and he has to have his case adjudicated in a court of law, oftentimes. Or you can do what the Trump administration wants to do, which is keep families together. Fine, that makes sense. Okay. But we also have to keep them in a supervised situation until their case is adjudicated, because we know that they're unlikely to show up for their court case. And by the way, they're not American citizens. So you know what the left wants to do. What do you want to do? For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Tom Homan, former police officer, longtime police officer, law enforcement official, and of course, for a time was the acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Tom Homan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So I just wanted to get your take on some. I don't know if you heard what this Harvard psychiatry professor had to say, but he called Trump's policy at the border and family separation previously soul murder, a crime against humanity. And now, of course, you have his fellow travelers suing to stop the administration from pursuing the elimination of family separation, but the supervised situation until their case is adjudicated. So what they're basically saying is they don't want any law enforcement at the border, as far as I can tell.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about open borders. And where was this professor during the Obama administration when we built family detention and we did separate families? I mean, this is politics at its worst. And the false narrative being pushed right now, this whole Flores settlement agreement, there's two false narratives they're pushing, right? They're saying, well, families be held indefinitely. Wrong. We've done this before back in FY15, before Judge G in the Ninth Circuit went nuts and changed the Flores meanings. But we held families about 40 to 50 days until they saw a judge. 90% lost their cases. We put them on planes and sent them home. And guess what? The border numbers went down dramatically. That is exactly what the Democratic leadership doesn't want. They don't want these people to go home. Second thing is they say they'll be put in bad detention conditions longer than they have been in the past few months. We got to be clear on this. They're not going to be held in a Border Patrol facility for those 40 to 50 days. They're going to be held in a family residential center that were built for families. These centers have child psychologists, pediatricians, schools, because we had a supplied education program. recreation, access to attorneys, law libraries, 3 squares a day, 6 sets of new clothes for everybody there, open air campus. So this isn't like holding them in a jail cell, the Border Patrol facility. These facilities were built for our families by experts that know how to take care of vulnerable populations. And the Inspector General has been to our family residential centers numerous times on inspected visits and never found serious problems with any of them. So these are the two false narratives we're pushing. And like I want to say it again because it's really important. We say this. In FY15, we did this, and it worked. And I didn't hear one complaint under the Obama administration. So this is about further resistance of President Trump and him trying to secure the border.
And why do you think the left is so obsessed with cages? People being put in cages. If somebody was there and they wanted, like, you know what, I don't want to stay here. I want to go back to my home country. Would you let them leave, or how does the process work?
Well, two things, right? They call them cages. They're not really cages. And again, these were built under the Obama administration. I was there. I was part of the team that put this together. And, you know, what they are is chain link fence dividers in a big warehouse area where where they're detained until HHS picks them up. And they're a chain link divider that keeps children away from unrelated adults, which is what we should do. The same chain link fencing you find in playgrounds. So they want to call cages, fine. Call them cages. They're great, big, giant cages that we built, funded, approved under the Obama administration. And like I said, we protect these children. The children that come by themselves, unaccompanied alien children,
Mm-hmm.
now they talk about the 2,500 that are separated under zero tolerance, but no one talks about the 15,000 that were in custody of HHS that came to the country at the hands of a criminal organization because their parents conspired with a criminal organization, had their kids smuggled in the trunk of a car or back of a tractor trailer. No one cares about that. No one calls that inhumane. And I've said for many months, if these children are really escaping fear, persecution, danger, gang violence in Central America, then why are their parents here? Why aren't they down there? And if they really want to bring that child, go down and get him and come back as a family. But to hire a criminal organization to smuggle your child, no one talks about that. So there's two sides to the story, and the left only wants to tell the one side, and it's the inaccurate side.
And they also tell only one side when it comes to, for example, that ICE operation in Mississippi and the iconic young girl who was crying and wanted her dad. They don't tell the side of the story that ICE ultimately returned that girl to her mother while the dad is being processed for being in this country illegally. And I saw you on, pretty sure it was Fox, discussing ICE in the context of all of the, unbelievable assertions about ICE and CBP. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about what ICE officers do every day, how they risk their lives to save, including migrant families, not just to protect American citizens, because they've been so maligned.
Okay, well, a couple big points here. That Border Patrol, they got a really tough job, right? These folks, they put on bulletproof vests, they put a gun in their hip every day, staying on that front line. I did it as a Border Patrol agent. And it's a job not a lot of people want to do. It's a dangerous job. You don't get paid a lot of money, but these people are serving their nation. They leave the safety and security of their home every day to put themselves at risk. And no one wants to talk about last year, Border Patrol agents saved over 4,000 illegal aliens that entered this country. They found them in the desert in dire straits. These are people that would have died if they were not rescued by Border Patrol agents. They saved many, many lives, but no one wants to talk about that. And, no one wants to talk about Border Patrol agents that deal with chickenpox and measles and TB, and they take these diseases and sicknesses home to their own families. During this family crisis, Border Patrol agents are actually bringing food. They're bringing toys for their own children to these facilities. These Border Patrol agents, they're mothers and fathers too, and they don't leave their heart at the door every day. So these are true American patriots that work very hard. As far as ICE agents, the story is not told about ICE agents. No one wants to talk about is that 89%. That's 9 out of every 10 people ICE arrests inside the United States is either a convicted criminal or are pending criminal charges when they were found, which means they're sitting in the county jail, which means they're not a choir boy. No one wants to talk about it. They want to talk ICE has no priorities. The left keeps saying ICE should prioritize criminals. Well, ICE does. 9 out of 10 are criminals. But you can't say prioritize more criminals when you don't let us in sanctuary city jails. You can't prioritize criminals and lock us out of the jail. You can't have it both ways. So no one wants to talk about 90% that are criminals. Nobody wants to talk about that ICE seized last year enough opioids off the streets of America to kill every man, woman, and child in the United States twice. No one wants to talk about the hundreds of women that were saved from human traffickers, sex traffickers. No one wants to talk about the thousands of children that were saved from child predators, or the thousands of child predators are in prison because of ICE work. ICE does a lot. ICE, like New York City. I went at it with Ocasio-Cortez one day, where she says, ICE is violating civil rights and they're out of control in New York. ICE, in 1 year, when I was ICE director, took over 5,000 criminal aliens off the streets of New York that were released from their sanctuary jails. So I will tell you that ICE agents did more to protect New York City than either her, or the mayor, or the governor ever did, because they all want the sanctuary cities. And so the men and women of ICE, they get vilified every day. The men and women of the Border Patrol get vilified every day. They get called Nazis. They get called racist. I had 80 protesters in front of my house on a Sunday morning calling me a Nazi and a protester, just simply for doing our job. So if you don't like what ICE does, if you don't like the Border Patrol does, instead of protesting us and calling the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol names and attacking their families, go protest Congress.
Yeah.
They're only enforcing laws they enacted. If you're not happy, go protest Congress, because Congress has failed the American people for at least 4 decades on this issue.
Speaking of
so if you want change, that's where you affect change.
Speaking of protesting Congress, so the Trump administration won a victory at the Supreme Court level a couple of months ago. $2.5 billion that can go for border wall construction. My understanding is about 40 miles has been built so far, and that would perhaps provide for another 100 miles to be built. Do you have any insight into the status of enhancing the barriers at the border?
Yeah, it's going. A lot of walls going up. They're going to have a couple hundred miles of border done by the end of the fiscal year. But and I want to. There's another false narrative by the left that they're putting up replacement. They're not building brand new wall and brand new areas. They're putting replacement walls. Part of that is true, but what they're failing to tell you is the Border Patrol, the experts on the border, know where these groups are coming through. They know where the drugs are coming through. The Border Patrol, the United States Border Patrol has prioritized where fencing needs to happen, where walls need to happen. So the reason they're replacing the dilapidated fencing is because it's being run over. Groups are still coming through there. Drugs are still coming through there. So the Border Patrol is saying we need to fix this first before you add at the end of this, because this is where we're having the problems right now. So the president has delivered on his promise. He's given the Border Patrol agents exactly what they want, where they want. But the left want to say, well, it's not new wall, just replacing the old wall. It doesn't matter. It's based on the prioritization of the Border Patrol where it's going to make the most effect. It is brand new wall. It may be in some of the same areas. That's because it's being run over, and that's where the problems exist. So the president's doing exactly the right thing. He's keeping his promise to the Border Patrol. Every place they built a border barrier, it has resulted in decreased immigration 100% of the time. It's not the cure-all to fix-all, but it works. And the reason the president knows that, because when he was running for president, he talked to people like me. He talked to Border Patrol agents and said, what's the problem? How do we fix it? So, he didn't make this stuff up. He's doing exactly what the expert says needs to be done, and it's going to have a serious effect on border crossings once we complete it.
Yeah, but do you think he'll complete the 500 miles before 2020 election? Or is that a daunting task?
I hope so, but here's the problem, right? Because I've been in government. I was in government for almost 35 years. The acquisition process is so convoluted. When you put something up for a contract, especially when it's billions of dollars, you have a lot of companies competing, and it takes a long process. And when a company don't win, they thought they're treated unfair, and they protest. That holds it up for months. Then you got permission from landowners to take them to court. Then you got the whole environmental issues. So there's a lot of pushing back by environmental groups and ACLU and so forth. But I think look, he's making a good pace, and I think what the latest wall they just showed to the drone 2 days ago shows they're making a real good stride at it. So I think they'll get pretty close to where they want to be. But it's another reason we need to elect this president for another 4 years, because he can finish this project and be the first president in the history of border enforcement to actually secure the border. I mean, I worked for 6 presidents. They all talked about it. They all talked about it during the campaign. But no one's done more to try to secure the border than this president. And if the left resisted him all this time, the border would be secure. And there's no downside in securing our border. I'm not sure if Republican, Democrat. What's the downside on securing our border and protecting America? What's the downside unless there's illegal immigration? What's the downside unless there's illegal drugs?
Well, and
you can't give me one. This is politics.
And it's interesting, too. I mean, I just find it a bit remarkable that Mexican President Obrador, El Salvadorian President Bukele, these are not exactly conservative Republicans. AMLO has said Trump is an ally and is flying in formation to a certain extent in terms of helping to secure their southern border and prevent caravans from migrating to our southern border. And the president and other officials have said actually AMLO is and Mexico is being quite constructive. The El Salvadorian president has said it's our fault. The part of the migrant crisis is our fault because obviously it's our fault when we have El Salvadorians fleeing El Salvador. That says something about the state of affairs in our country. We can't get anywhere near that sort of accountability from most members of Congress, and not just the socialists.
That's that's an excellent point you brought up, and so let's put that in perspective. You know how sad this whole situation is. When the government of Mexico does more to secure the United States southern border, the government of Mexico does more to secure our country and protect our citizens than the Democratic leadership in Congress, because they haven't offered up one. This issue has been going on for a few years now. The Democratic leadership hasn't offered up one fix, not one thing. The president has declared a national emergency. He's sent unprecedented resources down there. He's building a wall. He's moving money around. He's taking things to court. He's tried 100 different out-of-the-box thinking, something controlled by the court, but he keeps fighting the fight, and the Democratic leadership offers nothing. And it's really sad because right now they're complaining that they're reprogramming money within the department from FEMA and other agencies to help ICE fund detention beds. But they don't fail to mention out of the 8 years Obama was in office, we reprogrammed money 6 of the years. 6 of the 8 we reprogrammed money. This isn't new. But again, they want to muddy the waters. They do not want the president to succeed on securing the border. They made that painfully obvious because they failed to address it. They want to make this an issue at 2020. They want to say the president failed his number one promise to American people, but he's not going to fail. And every Democrat running for president stands on stage and says they want to get free medical care. They want to get rid of detention. They want to reward illegal behavior by giving citizenship to people here already illegally, amnesty. They keep throwing out more enticements. It's like throwing gas on the fire. So rather than coming with a fix and helping us to secure our border, they're just pushing more enticements. More people come. It's I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime, I tell you.
He is Tom Homan. He's a Fox News contributor, former acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Tom, thanks so much for joining us. Pleasure.
And thanks for having me. You keep telling us